KNAF AM Fredericksburg 910, the voice of the Texas Hill Country.
And it's time now for Talk About the Hill Country here on KNAF AM 910. It is 10 a.m. And we are lucky to have a really great guest today. We are talking to Jan Fritz of KNAF AM, KFAN, KNAF, The Deuce, and The Keep. She is the CEO and owner of HC Broadcasting, and she has spent about 50 years. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
About 50 years.
I don't admit that very often.
So we thought she loves history, we love history, and sometimes people are actually a part of history, even though they don't realize it. They make such a big impact. So today we're going to talk to Jan, and just asking you right now, are all your years at radio stations in Texas, or did you ever venture out?
No, they were all in Texas. Yes.
Very cool.
I spent most of my time here in Fredericksburg, but sometime we had a radio station in the Valley, and Jay and I went there for a while. And we also had radio stations in San Antonio, and I spent time there.
Wow. So when did you first start helping at the stations? How were you connected to the stations?
I was either 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm. So you were still in high school.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely still in high school.
And how did you come to start working at the radio station?
I met Jason, whose family owned the radio stations, and, whenever they needed help, they knew I was qualified, and so they would, and free, and so that was always good words, free, and so I would step in and start helping.
Well, what kinds of things did you get to do in the beginning? Were you able to be on air, or what?
Not in the beginning. I wasn't on the air. I would, do work in the office, anything like that needed to be done, I would do in the office.
That's cool. When was the first time do you remember the first time you went on air?
Oh, gosh. No, I really don't. I know Aline was there. She helped me the very first time I went on the air. She taught me so much about being on the air. One of the first things that she told me was smile before you open the mic, because that makes such a difference. And whatever's going on in your life, you forget that, because the audience doesn't want to know. They want to know a friendly voice, and they want to be entertained. So whatever's going on in your life, you put that aside and you entertain your audience. So you put on a smile, open the mic, and then perform.
Wow. That's good advice. Actually, that's the advice I got when I started out here. You guys passed that along. There's so many different things that we could start talking about. What are one of the things you're very involved in is public service for the AM station especially, but for all the stations. When did that sort of start, and what were some of the projects you were involved in? Because I know you helped start the parade, the Toys for Tots. There were a whole host of things.
The Toys for Tots was one of the very first things that we started. That started in 1976. And Jay and I started that because when we were living in Austin, of course, Toys for Tots is a big thing in Austin. And so we got here, and there was not a project like that in Fredericksburg. And at the time, we were very, I don't want to say dumb, but we didn't realize Toys for Tots was a Marine thing. We just thought, it was a standard way of raising funds and toys for children. So we went to Norbert and said we want to start something to raise toys for the children in the community that don't get it. And he said, well, as long as it doesn't cost us anything. That was his standard. As long as it's not going to cost us anything, go right ahead. So we started that in 1976, and we got names for 68 children. I'll never forget this.
Wow.
68 children that year. And we collected all the toys. We sat around on the floor in the front studios, and we wrapped all of them.
Wow.
And then we distributed them Jay and I did.
How did you find out it was a marine toys?
We
also
didn't find
does it?
that out for years. For years, we didn't know. And it would actually not until every year it just grew and grew. We had the fire department decided they wanted to help, and then the Rotary Club decided the Fredericksburg Chamber decided they helped. Every year, another group decided they wanted to get involved and help. And so one year, this was after the Rotary Club had been helping with it, and one of the individuals in the Rotary Club was a former Marine, and he said, pulled Jason and said, "You know that is a Marine thing." And we were like, "No, we didn't know. Nobody ever said anything." So he got permission from the Marines for us to continue to use that. But so now we formally have permission from the Marines to use that. So they basically didn't care as long as the kids were getting the toys.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one year we had a base here for the volunteer soldiers, and they wanted to help, and so they helped to deliver the toys, and they drive up in their big trucks with their uniforms on, and everybody would scatter because a lot of the toys would go to underprivileged children, but they weren't all necessarily legal. So they decided, well, maybe them delivering the toys was not the best idea, so they didn't do that again.
The heart was in the right place, though. That's
Yes.
so cool. So what are, just one second, we also have here, I have my colleague David, and David has a question for Jan.
Hi, this is David, and I work in marketing. Just going back, and this may be an elementary question, I know, but I think it's interesting. Everything was live back then, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And not like today, the logs weren't done. Somebody had to be sitting at the board the entire time that the
Yes.
station was on. So different than today, right?
Right, right.
Because sometimes we can get the logs in and we play through, but I just can't imagine. I've worked in this station for a while, and I can't imagine somebody being behind the board the whole time and what pressure that must have put on you guys.
Oh, yes. I mean, well, it was just standard. Everybody did that. And that's one of the first jobs I learned was how to do the logs. And the logs were done so differently.
Were they done live?
Well, they were done the day before, but you worked on the logs all week long. Every time an order came in, it was written in a spiral notebook. And so you would write all the orders in, and every day you would have the day, like Tuesday would show everybody's commercials. And then I would type up the logs. You would manually type up the logs, and you had this vellum that you could.
And did you have like CDs or not CDs, but 8 tracks or something of the ads that you would have to put in?
Not then. When it first started, you didn't have even 8 tracks.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, no, there were.
So even though you had a log, somebody had to manually look at the log, then get either the commercial or the song announced or whatever it might be, right?
Right, right. And we had a drawer that if something was missing, like if the commercials could be recorded, but some of the commercials were live. And some of the commercials had a donut. And Aline just amazed me. And the DJs, y'all think y'all have it tough. But back then, and I never had to do this. This was back in the day, in the 50s, in the 60s. A donut meant that a commercial started with a jingle, and then the DJ read the typed copy, and then it ended with the jingle.
Oh, wow.
So they would have on the turntable the record with the jingle. So they would start the jingle, stop it, read the live copy, and then start the record again to end the commercial with the jingle.
That was the point I was trying to make. I watch DJs now, and they have their rhythm, and they know what's coming up. They have the timing, but I'm just trying to imagine a DJ and how he had to be looking ahead the whole time, and then being live the whole time as well, knowing what he's got coming up, and he had to be on the board the entire time to watch those.
Yeah.
With no digital to look at what's in front of him, timing, those kind of things.
No, and like
news spots.
The news hour was solid then. So
Yeah.
there was no breaks. It was them doing everything.
Wow.
Well, and you, talking about doing things differently, you were part of a number of them, but a call-in show, so which is handled differently than it is now. So how did you? What was that call-in show about? And how did you get into that? And what kind? Because it's another public service thing that you've done, and it's also an innovation. What was that like?
We tried doing a call-in show. But it didn't work very well here. We did a call-in show in the evening to talk about, things that people were interested in, what was going on in the community, what they were upset about, what they liked, and different things. And this was during the period when Market Square was being redeveloped, which, by the way, Jason was on the Market Square Redevelopment Committee, and I was on the committee for the Food and Wine Fest, which was what was going to be paying for. And I was on the Food and Wine Fest committee for 10 years. Well, the first couple of weeks went smoothly, but we didn't have the equipment for delaying when somebody would call in. So what we would do was people would call in and we would take their calls and preview. So we would take their calls in the front office and say, who are you? What do you want to talk about? And then we would pass it on to the main studio. Mm-hmm. Well, this one particular call, they said that they wanted to discuss what was happening on Market Square and so forth and so on. So we passed them through. They get on live, and instead of saying what they told us they wanted to talk about,
Oh no!
yes, they said, when is the school district going to do something about the president of the school board and the I probably shouldn't even go that far, but there was an affair going on between somebody on the school board and somebody high up in
Wow.
the school having an affair.
Wow.
And so we immediately shut them down, but it had already gone over the air. Oh man, the next day we had the people involved in Jason's front office, threatening to sue us, threatening all kinds of things, threatening to go to the FCC. Well, the truth is a defense, and this was true. And, the school board had already addressed it with them, that already told them they needed to stop, but that ended our program.
So what were some of the other programmatic things? I mean, I know one of the things that you did was, of course, KFAN. I mean, that you basically started an entire genre.
We did, actually. When we started KFAN, it was the reason it's called Texas Rebel Radio is because we broke so many rules when it comes to programming radio stations. You weren't supposed to, if it was a country radio station, you only played country. If it was a rock station, you only played rock music. Well, we blended all of these different Texas, country, rock, and blues. So we broke all of these rules. So that's why we decided to call it Rebel. So out of that came Americana music. We helped to develop Americana music. We helped to develop AAA music out of what we did with KFAN. Those two formats, we were on the board to create those two formats, Americana music and AAA music.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's still going strong, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, those two formats have become industry-wide.
Well, and one of the, just going back a little bit to historical developments, you were just as a virtue of being a woman in the radio back then, back in the 70s, you were one of the ones to do some things the first, right?
I was the first woman in town in Fredericksburg to do sales.
Wow.
So I'm sure there were others across the country, but I was the first one in Fredericksburg to go out and do sales. Jason used to love to embarrass me when we would go someplace and he would introduce me as, "This is my wife. She walks the streets for a living."
So, what was it like doing sales back then? What is it a lot the same as it is today, or are there innovations in what you can do on radio that have made it a little bit different?
In many ways, it's a lot the same because we took the approach of a consultant when we did sales, and so that stayed the same. We felt like, I particularly felt like that's what we should do, is consult with our clients and see what their needs were and answer those needs instead of just pushing, well, this week this is on special, so let's push that for them. Well, we're selling this, we're selling that, so everybody gets that pitch. Now, we really looked at seeing what their needs were and answering those needs. That's why we have some clients that have been with us for 40 plus years.
Wow. That's loyalty. And obviously doing something right that they're sticking with you for that amount of time. That's wonderful.
Yes.
So when you think back, because I know you also had other interests that you had yourself, artistry that you wanted to do. When you look back at radio, do you think the sacrifices were worth it, or were you able to incorporate some of the things you love to do into it, and that made it work?
I think it was worth it because, I was always interested in art from a small child on, and I used that interest to develop all of our logos. And I feel like I was able to reach a lot more people and help a lot more people through radio than I probably ever would have through my art. But I did use that to develop all of our sales materials and, again, to develop all of our logos.
That's cool. And you, we talked a little bit about some of that you did for public service was the Toys for Tots, but you brought your ability to program plan and have that sense of artistry you helped start several parades in town, right? And a number of things that affect the local community.
Yes. There was a lot of things that, because we were always very service oriented, and involved in what was going on in the communities. So one of the first parades that we helped to start, I was on the committee. There were 3 of us on the committee to start the Christmas Lighted Parade. And I will never forget this. It was the Nimitz Museum and us and Sagner Jewelers.
Oh,
there
wow.
were 3 of us. The first year that parade started, there were 3 of us in the parade. So we went around Market Square, and we went around Market Square, and we went around Market Square over and over and over again. But from that parade is, as you know, has really, really grown. And people turned out for it even that first year. But since there was only, and we broadcast it.
Over and over and over again. That's lovely. I just love that. I had that image of you going around, and they were all lighted, and they got to see all of them very well.
Yeah, over and over and over again.
That's so
and then
lovely.
The next parade that we started was the 4th of July parade, and it was the Nimitz and us, and there were a couple of others. But that parade has really grown as well, the 4th of July parade, because it had stopped during World War II and there had never been a lighted parade, but the 4th of July parade had stopped during World War II. And so we had had close relationships with the Nimitz, and we had decided that would be something that we needed to bring back. And that parade has definitely grown tremendously as a result.
Well, we are we are going to close out this conversation now, but as you guys can tell, if you're listening, we have so much to talk about, even just how changes you've seen in the community as you've worked with it and grown with it, and have you seen it from the perspective of an observer as well as a participant. So we're going to have a second edition of this talk with Jan, and we will get back to you on when that's going to be. And we just thank you so much, Jan, for sharing, and you're still vitally involved, so thank you for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this has been Talk About the Hill Country. It is a public service of HC Broadcasting, and it happens every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And sometimes we have one guest, and sometimes we have two guests. And if you'd like to tell us which format you like, you can call us at knafnews@gmail.com or call 830-997-2197. If you'd like to get on the calendar so that you can be on Talk About the Hill Country and tell people in the Hill Country what your organization or business is doing, again, give us a call at 830-997-2197. Email us at knafnews@gmail.com. You can send us a letter at P.O. Box 311 or just stop by the studios. We're right here at 304 East San Antonio Drive.